Have you ever felt like you're in a constant tug of war for your own attention? You know that feeling, right? Being pulled in a million different directions, and it's just so hard to focus on what actually matters. Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to get into the science behind this whole thing and figure out how to tame that dopamine dragon to get our focus and our motivation back on track. And let's kick things off with this quote from Stanford psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lemke, because it just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly sums up this weird paradox of modern life. We have instant access to pretty much anything that could bring us pleasure, so why do so many of us feel kind of miserable? That question right there is at the very heart of what we're digging into. So to figure out why we're all stuck in this loop, we have to take a hard look at the digital world we're all living in. Because let's be real, it's not some neutral playground. Nope, it's a very carefully designed marketplace where the most valuable product for sale is you, or more specifically, your attention. Computer scientist Cal Newport actually has a name for this. He calls it the attention economy. And the big idea here is that platforms like TikTok, Instagram, you name it, they aren't just fun tools. They're incredibly sophisticated systems that have been engineered with one single goal in mind: to capture and hold on to your attention for as long as humanly possible. Why? So they can sell it to advertisers. And this is where the big disconnect happens. We get sold this story that these are just simple tools meant to make our lives better, to connect us. But the reality, their whole business model is built on designing ways to keep us hooked. The more you scroll, the more you click, the more you watch, the more money they make. And that means a lot of the time, what they want is the complete opposite of what you want. Dr. Lemke says this has basically created what she calls a dopamine nation. Our phones, she says, have become like a modern-day hypodermic needle, just sitting there, ready to deliver our digital drug of choice, whether it's likes, notifications, or an endless stream of videos, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay, so what is the actual biological fallout from living inside this system? What is this constant fire hose of stimulation really doing to our brains? To get that, we've got to look at the neuroscience of motivation, because that, right there, is where the trap is set. First, a really quick but super important clarification. We always hear dopamine called the pleasure molecule, but that's not exactly right. As neuroscientist Andrew Huberman points out, it's really the molecule of motivation. It's the chemical that makes you want to get up and pursue something. It's the feeling of wanting it, not the pleasure of actually having it. That's a key difference. So how does your brain manage all this? Well, it uses a system that works a whole lot like a seesaw. It's always trying to stay balanced, to stay level. This biological drive for balance is called homeostasis, and it's the key to understanding everything from motivation to addiction. Just picture it: pleasure on one side of the seesaw, pain on the other. Now, let's say you do something super rewarding. You know, a post gets a ton of likes, or you find an amazing deal online. Boom! You get a huge dopamine spike, and that seesaw tips way over to the pleasure side. But your brain can't just let it stay there. To get things back in balance, it pushes back with an equal and opposite force on the pain side. And this creates a trough that actually dips below where you started. And that trough, that right there, is the whole story. Dr. Lemke calls it the dopamine deficit state. It's that familiar kind of empty feeling you get after you've been scrolling for an hour, or that antsy, irritable feeling when you finally put your phone away. The pleasure is gone in a flash, but that deficit sticks around, leaving you craving another hit just to get back to feeling normal. And over time, your whole baseline for what feels good gets lower, and the simple joys in life, well, they start to feel kind of dull. Okay, so now that we get the attention economy and the neurological trap it's laying for us, the big question is, how in the world do we get out? And the solution isn't just a couple of quick life hacks. It really calls for a fundamental shift in how we think, a whole new philosophy for how we deal with our digital world. Cal Newport offers this really powerful idea he calls digital minimalism. Now, this is not about rejecting technology or going back to the Stone Age, not at all. It's about being fiercely intentional. It's about choosing to use technology like a surgeon's scalpel, a precise tool that supports the things you truly value, instead of letting it use you for mindless entertainment. And Newport lays out a pretty clear two-step process to make this happen. First, what he calls a digital declutter, basically a 30-day break from all the non-essential tech in your life. This gives your brain a chance to reset and for you to rediscover what you actually like doing without it. Then you start to carefully and very deliberately reintroduce a small number of technologies that give you a huge benefit for things you care deeply about. So, with that philosophy as our North Star, how do we actually put it into practice? How can we start rewiring our brains for more sustainable focus and motivation? All right, let's get practical and open up a toolkit of concrete strategies you can actually use. You've probably heard this term dopamine fasting thrown around. The name's a little bit of a misnomer, to be honest. You can't really fast from dopamine. A better way to think of it is as a cognitive behavioral technique. It's about intentionally taking a break from specific impulsive habits, like, say, not checking your phone for the first hour of the day, to basically lower your reaction to the trigger and get back conscious control over those urges. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman also warns about a bad habit he calls dopamine layering. This is when we stack a bunch of rewarding things all at once, like you're listening to a killer playlist while scrolling social media while drinking a pre-workout shake. It creates this massive dopamine spike for sure, but the crash that follows is way deeper. A much healthier way to go is intermittent rewards. Celebrate some of your wins, but not all of them. This keeps your dopamine system sensitive, and even better, it helps you learn to actually enjoy the process of doing the hard work itself. So how do you build these healthier habits in a way that actually sticks? Well, the science of habit formation could not be clearer on this. You have to start ridiculously small. I mean, forget about trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. If you want to read more, don't tell yourself you're going to read a book a week. Just commit to reading one single page. These tiny 1% improvements feel like nothing, but their power is in how they compound over time. They build an unstoppable momentum. And finally, there are things you can do to directly support a healthy dopamine baseline with just a few simple daily actions. Getting morning sunlight in your eyes for 10 to 30 minutes, trying to avoid bright lights late at night, and eating foods that are rich in tyrosine. That's a building block for dopamine, things like nuts and meats. All of these give your brain the biological foundation it needs for real, sustained motivation. Look, at the end of the day, this whole thing is about making a shift from being a passive consumer of technology to being an intentional master of it. Every minute you spend mindlessly scrolling is a minute you aren't spending with your family or on your passions or doing your most important work. Your attention is your most valuable, non-renewable asset. So the only question left is, who or what are you letting spend it?